What do you think happened?
Somebody shot him.
Life is all about choices.
Be able to look somebody in the eye every day and know, I'm going to kill you.
The decision to take someone's life is the ultimate moral reckoning.
When she walked in the bedroom, he was dead in the bed.
But some people claim they have no choice.
He said, you know, I could kill you, bury you, and no one would know that you're out here.
If they are to be the survivor. As a former FBI profiler, I'm often asked, can you spot a killer? Is it a look, an attitude, a pattern of behavior? After 40 years' experience, I can say it's complicated. But there's one thing I know. There is a deadly type.
Normally starts with emotional and mental abuse, and then comes the physical. So if you see that, then that's when you need to get out.
Melissa Vanover's story begins as a Cinderella-style fairy tale and has its unhappy ending here at the Ohio Reformatory for Women in Marysville. In 2012, I sat down with Melissa to find out where it all went wrong. In 1997, in northern Kentucky, 26-year-old Melissa is a divorced single mom working the nightlife to support her 4 kids.
First, I worked at a restaurant. I wasn't making enough money, so I did become a dancer.
Exotic dancer?
Yes, I did.
AKA stripper?
Yes. I had kids that I had to support.
Then one day, a handsome prince comes to Melissa's rescue. 48-year-old jeweler, Michael Neiman.
He was a very good-looking guy, very charming. Finally, I agreed to go out to dinner with him. He spoiled me right away. You could tell that he was a very rich man.
Melissa soon realizes Michael is selling more than jewelry. He's one of the biggest drug dealers in the city.
He was a very intimidating guy. He always carried a gun. And when I was out with him, he always made me carry a gun because I wore a lot of jewelry and we had a lot of money with us all the time.
Did you know he was a criminal?
Not at first. Not at first, I did not.
Intimidating, hands you a gun, involved in criminal activity. So many signs, red flags, but Melissa doesn't see them or doesn't care. The fairy tale does not last long. Michael has so many guns in the house, Melissa sends her kids to live with their father. And her handsome prince quickly turns into a toad.
His whole demeanor changed.
How?
When he was abusive.
He would be abusive to...
Towards me. He hit me all the time. You know, punched me, hit me, slapped me. He'd shoot off the gun. There was 48 bullet holes in the walls of the house.
48. There were 48 bullet holes in your house where he would shoot at you?
Yeah.
To scare you?
Yeah.
So, you're now living with a monster.
He owned 200 acres in Arizona, which we went there all the time. And he said, you know, I could kill you, bury you, and no one would know that you're out here.
Why didn't you go to the police?
I was very paranoid to talk to anybody. He's always told me that he's had law enforcement on his payroll, so I didn't know if I did call someone, I might have been calling his friend. And then after he would, bust my lip or, shoot at me the next day or something, he would always take me shopping or give me a diamond ring or...
So he would be contrite and try to make up for it.
I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. It's a classic cycle of violence and abuse. Abuse victims often think they can turn things around, that the next time will be different. But that never happens. That's dreamland. If you're in a relationship that's anything like Melissa's, pack your bags and get out. The life you save may be your own. Melissa has given up her kids to satisfy her abusive partner, but he still uses her children as a weapon against her.
I was crying because I wanted to see my kids, and he didn't want me to see the kids. And that's when he proceeded to tell me that he had paid someone $1,000 to kill each of them.
He threatened to kill your children.
Yeah. So we argue, and I was like, what if someone did this to your child? And there was a fight.
With loaded guns all over the house, a physical struggle escalates quickly. It becomes a deadly confrontation.
There was the headboard. He was reaching for his gun.
How do you know that?
Because that's the only thing that was in there, was the gun.
So he reaches for the gun, and what did you do?
And then I reached for the one under the bed.
We often don't think clearly when we're cornered, and our options all look bad. So we start to choose the best of the worst. That's where Melissa Vanover found herself, and she decided to become the survivor.
You shot him twice while he was turned around. You believed he was going for the gun.
Oh, I know he was.
But ballistic evidence will later cast doubt on Melissa's story. Police maintain Michael Neiman was shot in the back from close range while he slept. And there's a third bullet wound to the chest. Whether it was cold-blooded murder or self-defense, Melissa claims she had no choice.
What did you immediately do afterwards?
I ran out of the house because I thought he was going to come after me.
Did it occur to you to call 911?
No, not at that point.
Why not?
I was scared. I didn't know what to do.
Instead of calling the police, Melissa calls her neighbor, 18-year-old Kevin Green, who is also secretly her lover. As if her life wasn't complicated enough. And things get even crazier when Kevin and his family steal from the crime scene. And I mean steal. $750,000 in cash, jewelry, and drugs. Raiding the crime scene doesn't look like self-defense. It looks like greed. And that's what the court is told, that Melissa killed her lover and conspired with the Green family to share the spoils. As a result, she is serving 28 years to life for aggravated murder and theft. But Melissa maintains she did what she had to do to survive.
How do you feel now?
I mean, I'm very remorseful, and I've learned a lot from that.
What have you learned?
Well, I would not put myself in that position again. I know all the signs of a dysfunctional, unhealthy relationship. I'm getting a little emotional, sorry. If it starts with that, it's not going to end. It'll continue to be the physical abuse. And it's not worth it because you will end up here.
It's all about making choices, and that's good advice from someone who's made very bad ones. In the case of David Odell, this poor man didn't get a chance to make a choice.
David Odell was the kind of guy that would give you the shirt off his back. He worked 10 to 12 hours a day for Joe Myers, and he became a real asset for them.
In Wayland, New York in 2008, David and Joe Myers are friends and colleagues. Then along comes 28-year-old Irene Myers, Joe's new wife.
Irene Myers seems to be a very goal-driven person, and her goal was to get out of the Philippines, and Joe Myers was her vehicle to make that happen. Joe certainly wasn't really a prize catch, but apparently he was enough to get her out of the Philippines and bring her to the United States, the opportunity she wanted.
Irene has come a long way to claim her piece of the American dream. But she wants more than what husband Joe's modest income can provide.
She wanted to build Joe's business. They wanted to have more money coming in. And she wanted to build a home for her children to bring them over from the Philippines.
David is the sole employee of Joe's mechanical repair business. He doesn't earn much, but he's careful with his money and owns his own home.
He also was extremely proud of the very simple home he had. He'd paid it off. That was his great achievement in life, was to have the family homestead.
A childhood accident has left David intellectually impaired, but he's always been able to trust Joe's advice. But with Irene in the picture, Joe starts to see his old friend as something else, an asset they can cash in. Joe just dumps him for his new wife.
They started renting out David's house. Joe Myers put people in the home. He collected rent. David never got any money from that. Then they take the next step. Joe and Irene take him off to their lawyer, and they sign deeds. So they basically just stole his house.
Irene's next step is to move in, under the pretext of taking care of David.
I think she did intend to take care of him, but not the way that most of us would take care of somebody. They took away his seizure medication, I think hoping he would pass away.
The couple takes out life insurance for David and extra home insurance. In all, they stand to walk away with $175,000 in the event of David's death.
In their world, it was a lot of money. And that's what, unfortunately, it was enough to drive their dreams.
Irene moved to the United States to escape poverty and build a better life for herself and her children. She wanted the American dream at any cost.
This level of planning and malevolence for somebody who they were essentially caretakers for is one of the most fundamentally evil situations I've ever seen. To be able to look somebody in the eye every day and know, I'm going to kill you.
Wayland, New York, Valentine's Day, 2016. While David is napping, his caregivers bash him unconscious and set his house on fire.
David was found in a lazy boy chair, melted into that lazy boy chair, burned absolutely to a crisp. They found soot in his trachea, which indicates he was breathing his house in as it burned down around him.
like Irene and Joe Myers, think they're so clever. They think that someone like David won't attract attention when he perishes in an accident. Boy, were they wrong. Joe's own surveillance system captures him and Irene preparing to incinerate David's beloved house, with him inside.
Essentially had a movie of everything they did that night to show the jury down the road.
Joe Myers is convicted of first-degree murder, arson, and criminal conspiracy. His sentence, 23 years to life. Irene Myers is found guilty of second-degree murder, arson, fraud, and conspiracy. She, too, is serving 23 years to life.
This wasn't a snap judgment, I'm mad at you, I'm gonna kill you. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was a cold, calculated financial decision.
When Joe met Irene, he allowed her to corrupt him, and she did. I think had they never met, David would be alive today. Is Irene a survivor? Yes, like a great white shark is a survivor. The will to survive is one of our strongest instincts, but only a certain type is prepared to sacrifice their loved ones for their own self-preservation. Like the case of Joyce Sturdivant.
I always felt that Joyce loved Joe, that they had a good relationship. I never saw them argue any time that we were ever together.
Rhonda Rostakis remembers her in-laws Big Joe Sturdivant, a stock car racer, and his wife Joyce as a happy couple living in Waco, Texas.
Joe Sturdivant owned a transmission business. Joe was very outgoing, outspoken. He was very truthful and told you how it was. Joyce ran the office and handled all the money.
After suffering a heart attack in 2007, Big Joe retires, handing the reins to Joyce and son Joe Jr. That's when the trouble begins.
The police had called and said, there's been an incident at your parents' house. You need to come now. Joyce told us that someone had broken in the house and hit her on the head and knocked her out in the hallway. And then we found out that someone had gone into their bedroom and attacked Joe.
Despite Big Joe's age and a bad heart, he fights off the intruder. But Joyce is behaving strangely.
Joyce seemed more worried about telling the people about the bump on her head. We thought she was maybe in shock and upset. And so, we just assumed her behavior would be a little off.
If Joyce seems confused, it's not because of a concussion. It's because she can't figure out how her husband survived. Joyce set up a murder, but Big Joe was too tough, and the assailant fled. Joyce never got a bump on her head. She'll be fine and live another day to try and kill her husband. Joyce has her reasons for wanting her husband out of the way. Not only is the family business going under, Joyce has been cooking the books.
We found out later on that she had not paid the taxes in quite a few years on the business, and I believe that was over $140,000 worth of taxes that was due. So she was basically embezzling their own money.
Between her embezzlement, a business facing bankruptcy, and an unpaid tax bill coming due, the walls are closing in on Joyce. She decides her only escape is to cash in her husband. Big Joe has life insurance policies totaling nearly $100,000. But he and his family never even consider the first attack might have been an inside job. Little do they know, Joyce is already planning her second attempt.
She was completely normal at work, at home, on the weekends. There was never a hint of us having a notion that she might be trying to kill him. She was good at being two-faced.
On October 8th, 2008, Joyce takes matters into her own hands, making sure to protect her hair and clothing from any residual evidence. She then heads to work and puts in a full day at the office before returning home and placing the call to 911.
What is the address of your emergency?
I need an ambulance.
Okay, what's the problem there, ma'am?
My husband is laying in a pool of blood.
Okay. Do you know, like, if he fell or what happened?
It's like somebody's hit in here.
Joyce told us that when she walked in the bedroom, he was dead in the bed.
In her statement to police, Joyce gives nothing away.
I went over to him and shook him by his feet.
And then what happened?
He didn't wake up, and I was hollering at him. I thought he was having a heart attack, another one, and this one he wasn't coming out of.
And she said she called 911 and tried to do CPR, and he wouldn't wake up.
Is he laying face down or face up?
Face down.
Can you roll him over to see if he's breathing?
He told me to turn him over.
What happened?
When I turned him over, that's when I seen the blood.
Oh, God, he's so...
He's cold?
Oh, God, it's full of blood.
Many killers would be stunned back into reality after one attempt failed. Not Joyce. She kept at it. I think it was desperation. Joyce was cornered and running out of options, and poor Joe was her last hope. In 2011, 66-year-old Joyce is sentenced to 15 years for attempted murder and another 30 for murder, to be served concurrently.
I was completely shocked and disappointed and hurt that she did that. She took my father-in-law, and I lost my mother-in-law. She ruined our lives.
The will to live is so strong, even good people sometimes resort to bad solutions. But the true survivors will go much further and sacrifice anyone, even those they love, to save themselves. You never want them to get the upper hand, because you will become the victim and they will be the survivor.